Hi everyone and welcome back to another video for Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the next in the series of the weapon guides that are aimed at new players to NGS. And the weapon we're going to be looking at today, as you can probably tell, is the Wand, which is a weapon used by the Techter class, or Techter, depending on how you pronounce it. So I thought I'd look at this weapon today, mainly because we haven't looked at a tech weapon in a while, and also because there's actually a campaign running in the game at the moment that benefits this class. So at the moment in the game, if you go to your tasks and quests and go to your limited time tasks, there are certain tasks that are to do certain tasks for specific classes. And the classes that they're focusing on at the moment are Fighter, Gunner, and Techer. Now the Techer ones won't appear in here for me because I've already done them. But you can see we've got, there's an order here for getting Fighter to level 60. There's also one for Gunner to level 60, and there is one for Techer to level 60 as well. And then there's ones which are, suppress enemies as a Techter. And you get quite a lot of decent stuff for them. Particularly, though, for completing all of the limited time tasks. So for leveling up Fighter, Gunner, and Techer, you actually get 3 beta reactors, which are worth 100,000 Mazetta each. And you also get 100 star gems as well, so it is worth doing. Especially with how quickly you can level classes. So with that in mind, I thought now would be a good time to look at the Techter class, but more specifically the Wand weapon. And again, this is going to be mainly designed for people who are new to the game. So what the Wand is, it's a technique weapon. As you can see by, if you look at my wand I'm using here, this one's actually multi-weapon, so it has the dual blade symbol as well. But you can see it's the yellow weapon icon, which means it's treated as a technique weapon. That means that it'll benefit from any affixes that are designed to boost techniques and technique damage. However, the way you use Wand is primarily you actually use it as a melee weapon. So it's quite a strange class Techer in that it's a frontline class that will actually melee quite a lot, but it does it using a technique weapon, and it supports the team as well with buffs. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at Wand, we're going to look at how the basic combo works, we're going to look at the weapon actions, the Photon arts that it uses, and also any skills that benefit Wand as well. So we'll start off by, we'll just run outside here and we'll look at the basic combo. Thankfully, Wand is a really, really simple weapon to get used to at the basics of it. So with Wand, your basic combo to begin with will be, and that will be it normally. So it's just a 3-hit combo. You can see you've got a side swing, an upswing, and a downswing. And each of these can hit multiple enemies as well. So if they're clustered together, you will hit multiple enemies with them. But it is quite a short range. There is actually a 4th attack to the combo as well, which you unlock by, there is a skill you actually unlock for this. So if I go to my class skill information, there's actually a skill here called Wand Attack Extra. We will look at the skills a bit later on, but this one I want to highlight now, just because all this does is it adds an extra attack onto your Wand combo. So this gives you... So you kind of hold the rod above your head and then slam it down, and it does actually a lot more damage than your other hits. So that's actually a really useful combo. So that's the basic attacks for Wand. You will be using those a lot because Wand only has a couple of Photon arts that it uses. Before we look at the Photon arts, we'll quickly look at the weapon action as well. So the basic weapon action without any directional input is this, and it's essentially a parry. So it has some iframes, and if a monster attacks you while you're doing this, you will actually get a counter available from it. Don't know if there's anything around here I can show that on, but I will try and get the counter off. So with Wand, you will be in the enemy's faces quite a lot. It is a very short range weapon. It's typical at the one time I want to show some combat there's no enemies around. What I'll do is I'll let something attack me and I'll see if I can parry it. So you can see, so the way it works is you get the parry, and then if you press an attack after it, you can actually counter off it. So I'll try and show that again for you. this guy decides he's going to attack me. Any time of day. So you can see you get that kind of rush forward. So the parry is actually really useful. It's actually one of the easiest parries in the game to get. It's a very, very generous window to get that parry off. That's how the weapon action works. You can also, with it, if you hold a direction while you input the weapon action, you do actually get a short dash forward as well. And if you lock onto something, it will kind of track with the lock on as well. That's a basic idea of how the weapon action works. So it's primarily used as a counter. And you probably notice as well that the dash forward that you do once you've countered, you do that by inputting a normal attack immediately after you've countered. So you use your weapon action button to initiate the parry, and then as soon as you hear the parry noise successful, you hit the normal attack button, and you'll do that rush forward and attack. So the next thing we need to look at is some of the Photon arts. So although Wand is a technique weapon, it does actually have some of its own Photon arts as well. It's quite a unique skill, quite a unique trait for Wand. So if we look at it, what you can see is we actually only have 2 Photon arts. Most weapons in the game have about 4, but Wand only has 2. So we have Swift Smash and Wave Crash. So Swift Smash is... yeah, it's the first one I've got. So if you just press the button for it, you'll do a very small dash forward and a side swipe. Does reasonable damage. But you can charge this up as well. So if you hold the button down for the Photon art, you get a more powerful swing. You can hold that charge as long as you want as well. However, the great thing about Swift Smash is if you lock onto an enemy with it, this guy, for example, and hold it, then release, you can see she kind of dashes in right up to the enemy. Again, if I back away, you can see it actually has quite a lot of closing distance. And again, we'll lock on this guy, charge it up. And you can see the damage is actually pretty decent as well. So that's Swift Smash. The next one we'll look at is Wave Crash. I believe it's called Wave Crash. Yeah, Wave Crash. So Wave Crash is, again, really simple Photon art. Just does 2 hits where you slam the ground and you create a shockwave. And basically anything caught in that shockwave will get hit. Now, the great thing about Wave Crash is it's really spammable. It's quite a fast Photon art and it doesn't use that much PP. And bear in mind that you're going to be in the faces of a lot of the enemies anyway, so you're going to be regaining PP really quickly anyway from your normal attacks. So Wave Crash is actually really useful. That's a basic rundown of the 2 Photon arts that you've got. So it is very simple. The idea is that with Wand, you're going to be using a mixture of melee attacks, Photon arts, and techniques as well. So next we need to look at the skills that benefit Wand. So if we go into the class skill information, there are certain skills that you're always going to get with Techter. Again, this isn't a guide looking at Techter specifically, it's just to cover the Wand part of it. But I should just note now that, that Techter is the only class in the game that has access to Shifter D-Band. So this is just a buff that you apply to anyone near you, and it raises your attack and defense. It's really, really useful. So specifically for Wands, there are certain skills you want to be looking for. So things like slow landing charge Techter. So this means that when you're in the air, if you start charging something, whether that's a technique or a Photon art, bearing in mind that your Swift Smash has a charge to it, you'll fall slower. So you can see if I just jump and fall normally, you see it's quite fast. But if I jump and then start charging Swift Smash, you You see it's a lot slower drop down. So it lets you stay in the air a bit easier. So next thing is you do have access to the United techniques, the same as Force. So that's Zandian, Formelgian, and Brancian. So again, they're always available to you to use. And you do also have these brand abilities as well. So you've got access to Feuerbrand, Barterblot, Zonderklad, and you also have Zangale, Gransglitter, and Megasphere as well. If you want to see exactly how those work, go and look at my video for Rod, because I do cover how they work in that video. So if we keep going down, eventually you do start getting to the wand skills. So we have a skill here called Wand Lovers. So this is an active skill that goes on your sub palette. And what it does is when you activate it, mine lasts at a minute for 30 seconds and it has a 90-second cooldown. What it does is while it's active, you get attack deflection, which basically means that if an enemy goes to attack you and you attack at the same time, you will essentially deflect their attack. And it also negates any knockback or launches that you would receive. So it works quite similar to the skill that Hunter has, which I can't remember the name of offhand. But Hunter has a skill that prevents knockback, and this essentially works the same for Techter. And apologies if I keep switching backwards and forwards between Techter and Techter. It's because I played Japanese PSO2 for years, and going back to then, Techter was kind of the name that everyone used. So I'm used to calling it Techter, but it is called Techter. But next up we have Wand Attack Extra, which I've already covered. It just adds another attack onto your combo. Next one is Wand Element Change. So what this does, it's whenever you use a charge technique with a wand, obviously, your Photonic Fury will take on the element of that technique. So what that is, there's a little system with Techter called Photonic Fury. And the way you activate it is by charging a technique. So what it does is, whenever you hit an enemy with a wand, you will also do damage to that enemy. Some elemental damage based on the element of the wand. So I probably can't show you here because the enemies are too weak, but what will happen is when you hit an enemy with a wand, you'll get one damage number will pop up, which is the damage from hitting them from the wand. But you'll also get another number will pop up as well, which is the elemental damage that it's done. So if I look at my current gear, so this wand, the Tenebrous wand, you can see that it is ice element. So that means that whenever I hit an enemy with this wand, I'll also do some ice damage to them. Now, what Photonic Fury does is, Photonic Fury is the extra elemental damage that you get. But that skill that we've been looking at, so again, if we go back to it, so Wand Element Change is when you use a charge technique, your Photonic Fury will take on the element of that technique. So what that essentially allows you to do is hit an enemy with any elemental weakness, providing you've got a technique of that element. So I've already showed you that this wand is ice elemental. However, say, for example, I start fighting and an enemy comes over to me that's weak to light. If I go to a light technique on my wand, which you can see, I've got Grants on my palette here, on my wand. If I charge Grants, you can see now that as well as casting Grants, the end of my wand is now glowing white. And that signifies that it's now charged elementally. And it does last a little while as well. So now, if I go and hit an enemy, you can see we're getting light effects, and the wand even sounds different as well, as if it's hitting with light element. And again, I can show you with, so if we switch to lightning, and I charge a lightning technique, it's now glowing purple. And if I attack now, it'll have a lightning element to it, and it'll do lightning damage. Or if I go to wind, it's now glowing green, and I'll now do wind damage. So you get an idea how it works. And again, if I go to dark, it now glows a much darker purple, and I'll now do dark damage. So that's how the Photonic Fury works. And that wand element change allows you to change the element that you hit with. So even though I'm using an ice element wand, I can still hit with other elements if I want to. And yes, that does also mean that I can go back to using ice if I want to. I could just cast an ice technique. But it has to be a charge technique. So that's how that works. So next skill is one's Parry Counter. So this is actually what I was showing you earlier. So performing a normal attack upon successfully negating an attack with a weapon action unleashes a counter attack. So the weapon action without this skill is just a parry. It will just essentially parry an attack and allow you to not take damage. But if you have a one parry counter, that will also allow you to do that follow-up attack where you rush forward. Next one is Wand Lover's Line Force. So this is the speed and potency of your normal attacks increases during Wand Lovers. So again, I can show you this. So my normal attack speed. This is going as fast as I can. So this is the normal attack speed for one without Wand Lovers. If I then activate Wand Lovers, it might be hard to tell. It is faster, but it's not by much, but there is an attack speed increase. So next up, we have Wand Guard Reflection. So this is unleashes Photonic Fury upon successfully negating an attack. So this is if you use iframes, for example. So if you use the parry, if you have that Photonic Fury charged, or even if you don't, if you've just got an elemental wand, whenever you do a parry, you'll also hit the enemy with a bit of elemental damage. Then we have Wand Element Revoke. So this is press and hold the weapon action to revert elemental changes applied to Photonic Fury by Wand Element change. So this, I might be able to show you this now. So if I charge this now, so I've charged it now to light. If I then hold the weapon action, I might have to do it once it's fully charged, but yeah, normally you can just hold the weapon action in to just revoke that. I think you have to do it when you're fully charged, though. If you're wondering how you know if you charge, if you look at the palette here, there's a little gauge here, and this charges up as you attack enemies, and it will light up when it's charged. There is more to that gauge, though, which I'll go into in a minute. So, next one. So, Wand Parry Counter Advanced. This adds a shockwave to one parry counters. So this again is, so you'll do the parry, you'll do the counter attack following up from it, and as well as doing that dash attack, you'll also do a shockwave that hits things around you as well. So it just adds more and more and more onto that parry. So Techter is quite heavily built around using that parry and using it often. Then you've got Wand Dart Skip Attack, and this is a really interesting skill, and is actually where a lot of your damage comes from with Techter. So what this does is, after using the same Photon Art PA successfully, your normal attack changes to its third step. What this allows you to do is, you can see with our normal combo that really the first 3 hits are nothing special. It's nearly all of your damage is end loaded in the last hit. So everything is kind of in this hit here. So if you can skip those first 2 steps, you're going to get to that last hit more often. So if you do a Photon Art, I think it has to be a charge one, I think. No, it's after using the same PS successively, that's it, yeah. So essentially what you can do is, if you use the same Photon Art twice, instead of using normal attacks, you can then just go... And it's a quick way of getting to that final hit. And what you'll find is that your combo rotation with Techter will quite often be just Photon Art, attack, attack, Photon Art, attack, attack. Because you want to get to that 4th hit of your final combos as quickly as possible, because that's where a lot of your damage is. Look, and you can also do it with Wave Crash as well, so you could go... I should note that about Wave Crash, actually. I forgot to mention that. You can actually cancel it early and start it again. So normally, it does the 2 hits, but you can actually cancel out of it and just keep doing that first hit. So again, so just wait for that to recover a little bit. But essentially what you can do is you can use either Swift Smash or Wave Crash. Do them twice. It has to be the same Photon Art twice in a row as far as I'm aware. I don't think you can use, say, Swift Smash and then Wave Crash and do it. I could be wrong on that. So if I use Wave Crash twice and then do 2 normal attacks. And you see it's a very fast way of getting to that last hit. So that is where a lot of your damage is going to come from with Techter. Just by skipping those first 2 hits of your normal combo. So next up, so just bear that in mind when you are doing your combo rotations, that quite often you are going to be relying on that skip art skill to get to your big damage. So the next one we're looking at is Wand Element Pursuit. So this is when you hit an enemy with Photon Fury a certain number of times, activating Wand Element Revoke, which is the skill where you hold the weapon action, will launch an additional attack. You will not be able to use Wand Element Revoke when this skill is unavailable for use. Okay, so that's why I couldn't show you it then. So Wand Element Revoke, normally, if you don't have Wand Element Pursuit, you can just cancel your element on your wand whenever you want to. If you take Wand Element Pursuit, it prevents you from using Wand Element Revoke unless Pursuit is available to use. Now, to show you Pursuit, I'll have to go to a battle zone because I'll have to charge this gauge that I mentioned earlier. This gauge at the bottom of the screen here, this builds up as you hit an enemy with wand attacks. Doesn't matter if you're charged up or not, but when this is fully charged, if you then have an element charged to your wand and then hold the weapon action, what you'll do is you'll rush to the nearest enemy or the enemy that you're locked onto, and you'll release a big elemental explosion. It does a ton of damage, and then what that will do is it'll discharge the element from your wand. So then you can use a charge technique again to regain that element. So what I'll do is I'll go to one of the combat zones at the minute just so you can see that in action. It'll take far too long to build up on lower level enemies. So we'll go to Elio, into one of the combat zones. And I'll just fight normally, and what you'll see is when it's built up, I'll signal it and I'll show you how to use this. So hopefully there's some teams going. Yep, there's one in Vanford there. We'll go there. So we'll just head over here and get where everyone is. So at the moment, we don't have an element charge in our wand. So this guy's weak to fire, so what I would do is I would go to fire. I don't actually have fire on my palette at the minute, but I'll charge light, for example. So I'm now charged, and if I now dash in, again using that 2 Photon R2 attacks thing, get as much damage as possible. So we're building that gauge up at the moment. That's actually ideal that we've got a PSE burst. So I'll keep attacking. So still attacking, almost there now. So the gauge is now charged. So if I now hold the weapon action and target something, you can see I did a big explosion and it did about 3,000 damage. So that's how Wand Element Pursuit works. Might be quite hard to see just because there's so much going on in a PSE burst, but essentially what you want to be doing is do that combination of 2 Photon Arts, 2 normal attacks to build up your, to get your DPS in, but also build your gauge up quickly. Make sure that you're charging your techniques to add the element which corresponds to the enemy that you're fighting. And once you've built that gauge up, then you want to be, as soon as that gauge is filled, more or less, you want to be dashing in, doing Wand Element Pursuit to do the explosion, and then immediately recharge your wand with an element again and reset the process. So that's kind of the combat loop for Techter. So I think that's all of the actual skills that benefit Techter. I'll just double check just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Yes, that's more or less it. So that's kind of how Techter works overall, and how wand works in particular. As I say, there are other skills that benefit Techter in general, so things like Shifter and D-Band. Techter can also provide buffs to party members that get revived. And it can also do decent elemental damage to enemies as well. So again, if we just quickly look at the skills for Techter. So it has skills like Weak Element Amplifier that increase your Photon Blast Gauge when you attack the enemy's elemental weakness. So it's all about attacking the enemy's elemental weaknesses with Techter, which you can do very easily because you can just change your element on your weapon completely freely by just charging a technique of that element. So it's really, it's quite a simple class to use overall. There's a little bit of nuance to it. We're getting used to how the combo loop works, but overall it is quite a simple class to play. It's also a very, very tanky class as well. It's quite a good defensive class, so it can keep itself alive really, really easily, particularly because the parry on the wand is so good as well. It's a really, really simple parry to get. It's got seemingly tons of iframes and tons of leniency for actually getting the parry. So it is quite an easy class overall to play. And as I've said at the beginning of the video, there is actually an incentive to play at the moment with this campaign, in addition to Fighter and Gunner as well. Now, I've already covered 2 of the Fighter weapons. So I've already covered... actually, I've covered 1. So I've covered the Twin Daggers so far for Fighter. And I've covered Assault Rifle, which is used by Gunner, but it's not Gunner's main weapon. That's the Twin Machine Guns. So I'll probably look at doing those 2 weapons next. So it'll probably be either Double Saber or Knuckles next, followed by Twin Machine Guns, just while we've got this campaign on. If you're wondering as well, this campaign lasts... There's a bit of time on it, so it lasts until the 4th of October. So you do have a little bit of time to do it. You got a few weeks for it. And the other benefit for doing it as well is you do actually get some items for your creative space as well. So you get blueprints for commemorative plates for each of those classes. So 1 for Fighter, 1 for Gunner, and I've got the 1 for Techter in my inventory, I believe. Yeah, so there's a Techter commemorative plate there as well. Just, it's things that they probably won't re-release. So if you're obsessed about getting everything for your creative space, then you probably want to be doing this campaign just to make sure you get it. So at the moment, I would say you do want to be focusing on leveling either Fighter, Gunner, or Techter, or ideally all 3, if you haven't already. It might be that SEGA rotate to other classes later on, but for the time being, those 3 classes seem to be the focus. So that's why I thought I'd do this video now, just for anyone who's maybe didn't get round to trying Techter the first time round. So I think I'll call the video there for now. If you've got any questions at all, just leave them in the comments. I will try and answer what I can. But overall, hope this has been useful. And next video, like I say, we'll cover either one of the Gunner or one of the Fighter weapons. But hope it's been useful, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks now.